Is there a better way to go about getting undocumented immigrants who have committed felonies off the streets?
There is. You just actually follow the law.
But when Chicago comes across a criminal, they don't even ask, are you in the country? So if the feds don't know that that person's here because they snuck into the country, Chicago's not even asking. They're not notifying the feds proactively. They're just releasing that person back into the community. Take a look at this Wall Street Journal editorial that says Chicago's head case. That's your boy, in case you didn't notice. Chicago's head case wants a head tax. And we're back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, my people. You know that it helps us out a ton. And of course, it helps you because it helps us keep bringing you these stories every day. Now, y'all, I just saw an interview with your boy. You know who he is. Do you see him on the screen looking all illustrious and sub 10%? The illustrious sub 10% approval rating mayor of Chicago. He looks tired there, y'all. I know we used this video many times. He just, look at him. He looks like he's about to fall asleep. Wake up. He needs to wake up, man. He's asleep at the wheel. So there's this recent, look at him. Just look at him. Anyway, so there's this recent interview, y'all, where he's talking about, he's going over all of his talking points. So I thought that today would be an excellent day for me to provide some clarification to so many of the illustrious sub 10% approval rating mayor's talking points. He talks about the budget. By the way, y'all, his campaign, if you saw our last video on him, his campaign has had to refund like $290,000 in donations because they're not accounting for the donations properly. They're receiving illegal donations. So while he's talking about I think a $16 billion budget for Chicago, he can't even manage his own $2 million worth of campaign funds. That's one problem. He's also going to say that Chicago cooperates with ICE. And y'all, I'm about to provide you with the information that you probably wouldn't know if I weren't here to give it to you. So you're going to really enjoy that. And he's also going to comment on some other stuff, and we're going to bring you the real on all of that. I'm not saying he's lying, okay? He's just giving you incorrect information. He's just misleading you, whether he's trying to or not. Maybe he doesn't even really know the reality himself, y'all. But whatever the case may be, you are going to be an informed citizen of this United States today. So without further lead in, y'all, first, I'm going to let you hear the question about Chicago cooperating with ICE. And then I'm going to let you hear the answer. And then I'm going to break it down for you. And we'll continue like that with his other misleading illustrious sub 10% approval rating claims. Let's go ahead and hop into it. But before we do, y'all, we have a new webpage for my people out there who are like, yo, I have money, but I don't want to give it away to the people who are trying to take it. How can I protect my retirement? Y'all, gold. How many times do I have to tell you? Gold has been man's longest monetary best friend for 5,000 years. I mean, what else are you looking for? Go to our webpage. Go to the new webpage, Paralegold, PARALEGOLD.com. Get the information on how to protect your retirement. And you can call 844-651-8334 and speak to our partners at Augusta Precious Metals. Now let's go ahead and hop into this content.
As long as we're on the subject of immigration, is there a better way to go about getting undocumented immigrants who have committed felonies off the streets?
There is. You just actually follow the law. You get a criminal, there's a criminal investigation, of course, that takes place. And, you know, if you get a warrant, this is the best way in which we can actually get these individuals off the streets of Chicago and off the streets across this country. But this is not about safety. It's not about immigration as well, because if it were, the president would work with our local law enforcement to actually get criminal warrants to be able to address that issue. But it's certainly not about safety as well, is because this president has reduced violence prevention dollars significantly in his budget, including cutting the ATF budget as well.
This is a huge misleading claim, one of the biggest. So I want y'all to understand something. Listen to me closely. When ICE knows that there is a person in the country without permission and that person has committed crimes, they can seek a warrant to go arrest that person or detain that person and deport that person. So here, what the illustrious sub 10% approval rating mayor of Chicago is saying, he's saying, hey, If you show us the warrant, yeah, if that person's in our custody, we'll turn that person over. Okay, that's probably true. But let me tell you what's misleading about that. That is if ICE has already sought a warrant. But how often is that going to be the case? Let's say somebody hops the border. They run all the way from the border up into Chicago. They live in Chicago for a few years. They commit some crimes. And then one day they get in a car. They're driving drunk and they crash into somebody. You know what the Chicago police do not do when they go to the scene? They don't even ask your immigration status. So there's no way that they're not even going to tell ICE that they have somebody in the country who just committed a crime, because they don't even ask your immigration status. Do you see? So ICE has to somehow know that you're here even though you're not supposed to be here. ICE is supposed to telepathically know that. They're supposed to telepathically know that you're in custody in Chicago. They're supposed to get a warrant based on all of that telepathy. And then they're supposed to contact Chicago and say, hey, we telepathically knew that somebody entered this country years ago and that you guys have custody, because remember, Chicago isn't even asking immigration status, okay? So ICE has to telepathically know this stuff, right? And then they have to go to Chicago and say, yeah, through telepathy, we figured all of this out. So we know you have them there. Just trust us. That person doesn't have permission to be in the country. We're coming with a warrant. Oh, by the way, we convinced the judge to give us the warrant because the judge also believes in telepathy. Do y'all see where I'm coming from? In other words, Chicago will only comply with the warrant that ICE has. But because Chicago and the states are most likely to come into contact with people who are in the country without permission, Chicago's not even going to ask their immigration status. They do no investigation. There's no way ICE would even know that person is here in the country because they came in without permission. Y'all see what I'm saying? So if you get the point, only after ICE has somehow figured out on their own that this person is in the country without permission, gotten a warrant, and then go to Chicago, will Chicago cooperate. But outside of that, Chicago is doing nothing. They're doing nothing. They're arresting people. They don't even care about your immigration status. You can be a criminal. They'll release you right back onto the streets, even though you don't have permission to be in the country, because they don't even, by policy, they don't even ask. Does that make sense? Anyway, y'all, let's continue.
Yeah, Natalie, Secretary Noem just wrapped up this event here at the Gary Chicago Airport, trying to highlight Operation Midway Blitz, saying they have detained more than 3,000, what they say are criminal undocumented folks, and especially an operation targeting undocumented immigrants with commercial driver's license. Those are licenses that they can drive trucks with. They say they have nabbed about 223 commercial drivers that are undocumented immigrants. They say that's very dangerous to have on the roadway. They don't want those folks on the roadway. The governor here, Mike Braun, a Republican, commending Noem for that part of Operation Midway Blitz. Meanwhile, she says the entirety of the operation goes on and it will not be ending anytime soon. Take a listen.
Since the beginning of Midway Blitz, ICE and CBP and our state partners have arrested more than 3,000 illegal aliens, including rapists, murderers, and gang members that have been brought to justice.
Now, they highlight the criminals that they have detained, but according to the Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse, a database that's kept this information, more than 71% detained so far of those 3,000 have had no criminal record whatsoever. I asked the Secretary Noem why that is, and she says simply when they are targeting someone with a criminal record, if others are around there and they are undocumented, it is their job to detain them and take them in and put them through the process of getting court hearings and eventually being deported. Meanwhile, Governor Pritzker today holding his own news conference, begging Secretary Noem to call off the operation at least on Friday so kids can trick-or-treat safely.
So don't believe it when they tell you that they're busting the worst of the worst gangs or gang members. They're attacking peaceful neighborhoods and terrorizing kids in Halloween parades. Children across the city are being traumatized. Their parents are being taken from them. Families are being ripped apart, sometimes in the most heartbreaking of circumstances.
And Secretary Noem said she heard Governor Pritzker's request, but she denies it. She says Operation Midway Blitz will be in full force on Halloween, on Friday tomorrow, as it has been every day in Chicago. And as we said, she says there is no end date in sight until, she says, all of the undocumented immigrants are out of the Chicago region. We know that there are more than 100,000. That could be a very, very long time.
So obviously the Department of Homeland Security and ICE, they do have resources to identify some of the people who are in the country without permission, who are arrested for crimes and who are convicted of crimes. Doubtlessly not all of them, but looks like they have enough information to have gotten 3,000 people out of the Chicago area recently, with many, many more to come. Something like over 100,000. Some people say upwards of 500,000 in the area on a whole.
The commander of the Border Patrol, you called him barbaric at one point. Bovino said that this anti-police rhetoric is fueling some of this violence against immigration agents. What do you say to that statement by him?
Well, look, when you have armed, masked men sticking long guns in the faces of people across the city, that certainly does not engender confidence with law enforcement. What we've done here locally, we have instituted constitutional policing, repairing trust within the community so that we can actually drive violence down. This is, again, it's not about safety. It's not about immigration. This is really about intimidation.
Well, this Halloween operation in Evanston led to the arrests of undocumented landscapers and 3 U.S. citizens. Today, a large protest at the scene. Neighbors here saying the feds were out of control.
This neighborhood was under attack.
One day after Border Patrol clashed with neighbors on this leafy block in Evanston, hundreds gathered to protest the tactics and support immigrants.
But we are not frightened. We are Evanston.
Get your hands up!
It began a few hours before trick-or-treat. Border Patrol in a vehicle collision as neighbors began shouting, blowing whistles. Agents used pepper spray and arrested 3 U.S. citizens. DHS said one of them grabbed an agent's genitals. But witnesses say the agents were the aggressive ones, even pointing a handgun into the crowd.
A real gun. I know guns, I've had enough guns. It wasn't a pepper ball, it wasn't mace, it was a gun.
DHS said in a statement a hostile crowd surrounded agents and their vehicle and began verbally abusing them and spitting on them.
They were brutalizing people who were yelling at them. It's legal to yell at people in America.
Evanston Mayor Daniel Biss says local police obtained badge numbers and are considering next steps.
Work with the Cook County State's Attorney to press charges like that or refer instead perhaps to the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. But there's an open investigation and they're gathering evidence and figuring out the best course of action to make sure that we hold these criminals accountable, because these are criminals who came to Evanston and assaulted our residents.
Across the region today, more protests including downtown and a prayer vigil in Broadview, also lining the streets of Evanston.
They are outside their line of duty. They're drawing guns on unarmed citizens. Knock it off. There needs to be accountability now.
But a major update from the Federal Appeals Court downtown. The 7th Circuit ruled that Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino does not have to appear in person to discuss use of force incidents, saying that would infringe on the separation of powers. In Evanston, Randy Gyllenhaal, NBC 5 News.
I don't know, y'all. There's so much I can say about these people, but I'm for the time being, y'all, for right now, I'm just gonna let that slide because we just not the same type of man. That's all I'm gonna say, y'all. Let's keep it moving.
In the news this morning, late last night, the Illinois legislature came up with a plan to fund transportation. Republican lawmakers call it a bailout for Chicago. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, our public transportation is second to none. Our ridership has gone up significantly, over 11-12%, 300 million riders. It's the economic engine of the entire region and the state, quite frankly. And this investment in our public transportation is going to protect people's jobs. It's going to make sure that we're fully funding a system that, quite frankly, has been underfunded for a very long time. And so this is a step in the right direction, and we're grateful for all of the hard work that has gone into ensuring that the people of Chicago, the entire region, get to benefit from a world-class public transportation system.
Hey everybody, it's State Senator Chapin Rhodes. It's 4:28 a.m. on Halloween. General Assembly just wrapped up its fall veto session. That's the state capitol behind me. And I'm not kidding you, it's literally 4:28 a.m. The Democrats raised your power bills. The Democrats put illegals over the safety of the citizens of the state of Illinois. The Democrats stole your downstate transportation funds, the motor fuel tax, the sales tax you pay on motor fuel tax. They stole it and sent it to the CTA in Chicago. That is the record of JB Pritzker and the Democrats who run this state. Hey everybody, it's State Senator Chapin Rhodes. It's 4:28 a.m. on Halloween. General Assembly just wrapped up its fall veto session. That's the state capitol behind me. And I'm not kidding you, it's literally 4:28 a.m. The Democrats raised your power bills. The Democrats put illegals over the safety of the citizens of the state of Illinois. The Democrats stole your downstate transportation funds, the motor fuel tax, the sales tax you pay on motor fuel tax. They stole it and send it to the CTA in Chicago. That is the record of JB Pritzker and the Democrats who run this state.
Did y'all know that the city of Chicago spent about $800 million on people who are in the country without permission over the last several years? Did y'all know that? If you watched any of my videos, you probably know that. And did you also know that they've spent up to almost $100 million because of one rogue cop in Chicago who was going around violating people's rights? $100 million, one cop, y'all. So I'm just putting things in perspective for you. They're gonna keep asking you for more money. They're gonna keep taking more money from you. But this bill did pass, y'all.
Some are calling this a Hail Mary for our transit system, avoiding drastic cuts to CTA, Metra, and PACE. This bill raises $1.5 billion for public transit statewide. A big day for CTA, Metra, PACE, and public transit riders. The bill passed while many of us were sleeping, averts major cuts to those systems. Audrey Wennick was in the room when the Senate voted for it around 4 a.m.
That was a first for me.
She's with the Metropolitan Planning Council, a nonprofit policy organization.
This has been a multi-year journey.
Tracking the transit bill from the beginning.
This provides a long-term funding solution.
How and where is the money coming from? The plan would raise the existing Regional Transportation Authority sales tax by 0.25 percentage points to 1% in Lake, McHenry, Kane, DuPage, and Will counties, and 1.25% in Cook County, generating $478 million. But the bulk of the funding, $860 million, would come through redirecting sales tax revenue charged on motor fuel purchases, with around $200 million coming from interest growing in the road fund. Wennick says riders will see improvements.
Better connections for riders, better communications with riders, improved safety.
The bill passed in the Houses largely along party lines. There were no Republican votes in the House. The final vote came in the Illinois Senate just before 4:30 this morning, and that vote was 36-21. A couple of things that were not in that bill. A tax on things like concerts and streaming services, and also a tax on billionaires. That was in an earlier plan that we reported about.
Now you know you're in trouble when you are illustrious sub 10% approval rating, and even the newspapers are coming out against you, y'all. What I'm talking about is the head tax. So first, just look at this little clip, and then I'm going to show you what one major newspaper said about your boy. Let's take a look.
You're in the process of trying to get this big budget passed. In the meantime, 26 City Council aldermen signed a letter opposing that corporate head tax and a couple of other things. Talk about that corporate head tax. Governor Pritzker's against it. He called it a job killer. What can you say about that?
Take a look at this Wall Street Journal editorial that says Chicago's head case. That's your boy, in case you didn't notice. That's the illustrious sub 10% approval rating head case. Chicago's head case wants a head tax. Mayor Johnson wants to levy a per employee tax on city businesses, calling this guy a head case, y'all.
Well, first of all, this budget is about protecting working people. For too long, our budgets have been balanced off the backs of working people. Garbage fees, property tax increases. I made a commitment that we're going to challenge the ultra rich in this city to pay their fair share in taxes. And why is that important? Because we're setting up a community safety fund that's going to ensure that our officers have mental health support services. It's going to fund our domestic violence programs because we have survivors that are still going through a great deal of trauma. We're going to hire, 30,000 plus young people, and we're going to invest in our CVI program, our community violence intervention workers that have been demonstrating that violence goes down significantly when CVI workers are in place. And so this is a part of the ongoing process. We'll continue to negotiate. But as I said before, the people of Chicago want the ultra rich to pay their fair share in taxes, and that's reasonable.
But if you're a corporation, why would you not just leave the city?
Well, first of all, we have the most diverse economy in the entire world, right? And our economic vibrancy is second to none. We just had the busiest season in our airports. We've had the highest amount of hotel occupancy in the history of Chicago, 3.5 million people come and hang out in the city of Chicago.
What does that have to do with corporations?
It's because we're a business-friendly city. And here's the thing, we're talking about 3%. Right? 3% of our largest corporations, who, by the way, just received the largest tax break in the history of America from Donald Trump. Now, look, safety, affordability, these are things that are important to the people of this city. And if we're going to make sure that we continue to drive violence down, which we've had the fewest amount of homicides, the safest summer in 60 years. Corporations know that the best thing to do to grow business is to have a safe city. This investment is making sure that we continue to double down our efforts to build a safe city.
Y'all, I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing. He just doesn't know what he's doing. And I don't like to levy that type of criticism, but he doesn't know what he's doing. I think he means well. I think he really is trying. That's the sad part about it. I think that he's trying to do something that he doesn't have the capacity to do. That's the sad part, y'all. So I don't know. My man needs some help, y'all. Somebody help him out. He's not good at this. He was probably an excellent social studies teacher. Anyway, y'all. Sorry, Chicago. Y'all voted for this. Y'all had Lori Lightfoot before this, so you actually might have gotten an upgrade, Anyway, y'all, let me know what you think about all this down in the comments. I guess my main question for today is, did you understand my explanation about how he's misleading about whether Chicago works with the feds as it relates to criminals? If the feds already know who a criminal is and know that that person has committed a crime and they can get a warrant to deport that person, Chicago will work with the feds. But they won't help the feds determine but when Chicago comes across a criminal, they don't even ask, are you in the country? So if the feds don't know that that person's here because they snuck into the country, Chicago's not even asking. Many of these cities aren't. So they're not notifying the feds proactively. They're just releasing that person back into the community. All right, y'all. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments. But before you do, please stop, hit the share button, share this video out over email, text message, WhatsApp, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, all of your favorite social mediums. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. I want to thank y'all for watching. Love y'all. We'll see you back in the next one.